Long-time lurker, first-time poster. This happened back when I was 21, living downtown with my boyfriend. I had just found out that my boyfriend, who I had been with for almost 4 years, had been cheating on me. We were invited to a Halloween party that night, and had initially declined the invite. But then I found out about the cheating and told him I was going and he could stay home if he wanted. We were in the process of breaking up and dividing our assets. Anyway, the breakup is relevant to my frame of mind. We lived in a rather sketchy area downtown, one of those brand new apartments built in a slummy area sort of things. And any other night, I'm the type who keeps all the windows up and all the doors locked until out of the area immediately surrounding our apartment. However, my mind was understandably elsewhere, and I had both driver and passenger windows down so I could smoke a cigarette. The first red light I came to on the way to the party was still in the shady part of town. I'm the first car at the light, so I have a full view of a 20-something guy crossing the crosswalk left to right in front of my car. Suddenly, he looks over and makes eye contact with me. I'm flicking ash from my cigarette out the window at this point, and may have done a polite head nod. I can't remember. The next thing I know, he picks up his pace and walks over to my open passenger window, leans into my car, and asks if he can have a light. When flustered, I tend to be polite, so without really thinking, I hand him my lighter. I was totally prepared to just pull away when the light turned green and let him have it. That's when, instead of reaching for the lighter, he reaches into my car and lets himself in. He just sits down in the passenger seat like we're old best friends. At this point, the light turns green, and I grab my purse and wedge it between my left leg and the driver's side door. Apparently I was more concerned with being robbed than the darker alternative. He thanks me for giving him a ride, and I slowly pull away from the stoplight. Tons of cars are behind me, and I ask him why he got into my car. He replies that he could tell I wanted to give him a ride, and launches into an obviously fabricated story about needing a ride because his girlfriend had just broken up with him and left him stranded downtown. I tell him I'll take him to the nearest gas station, as I needed to get gas. I didn't, but this was the closest place to our location, which was well lit and sure to have people. And the gas station was only about 6 blocks away, but it was the longest 6 blocks of my life. He tells me I'm pretty, and asks if he could have my money so he can get a cab home. Like an idiot, I offer him the $4 and quarters I keep in my car for the parking meters. At this point, I think I was just ready to make him stop talking and leave me alone. Instead, he starts throwing the quarters one by one down the cleavage of my shirt. What the fuck? I ask him to stop and he just laughs. And then I see it. The gas station. I pull in and tell him we need to both get out so I can pump. He hesitates and then gets out. I've never locked my car doors so fast in my life. I walk inside, telling him I need to prepay. Instead, I find the first group of people I can, college town and a Halloween weekend, so they're out in costume droves, and explain the situation. At this time, a guy with the group I'm talking with comes in and tells his buddies that guy out there is telling him that I'm his girlfriend, and that I accidentally drove away with my purse on top of the car. No. The group of college kids ended up going outside, making him leave, and then sticking around until I was back in my car and on my way. I have no idea what his intentions were, but let's never meet again. First time poster here. Back in 2012, when I moved 1,200 miles away from my home state, I didn't know anyone in the area. Despite me being a rather introverted 22-year-old, I thought it would be good for me to get to know some locals. After joining meetup.com, I browsed several groups until I found one that looked perfect. It was a nearby holistic healing center. Where they held events ranging from Tibetan singing bowls to psychic fairs. Given my lifelong interest in things of the alternative nature, I was excited by the thought of making some new like-minded friends. I signed up for the next event and attended a few days later. Upon my arrival, I was enchanted by the scent of incense and abundant good vibes. The owner was warm and kind as she introduced herself and the other attendees. Everyone I met was pretty genuine. They were very inclusive and made me feel welcome. I'm someone who's incredibly close with my family, and it was my first time living alone and far from home. For these reasons, it was wonderful to feel such an instant connection with others. I had a great time getting to know everyone, and before I left, the owner, Rebecca, invited me to come back. That soon turned into me frequenting the center 4 or 5 times a week. Early on, I met a guy named Rodney at a Reiki circle. That's a Japanese relaxation technique. He was a middle-aged man who was at the early stages of balding and kept his long hair in a low ponytail. His skin was pretty tan, and he was in good shape with muscular arms. Compared to my petite frame, he towered over me at about 6 feet tall. Following the event, everyone would always hug each other and have a chat. Rodney was the first to come over and give me a very long, tight embrace. As we spoke, he told me how he was a single father and introduced me to his teenage son, and the 3 of us hit it off pretty much immediately. Rodney and I seemed to have a lot in common, from our love of raw vegan food to scuba diving. I felt like I had met a kindred spirit, and the energy he exuded was calm and peaceful. He was easy to trust and open up to. Over the coming months, I became Reiki certified and was spending a lot of time at the center. There was a core group of us that became inseparable. Rodney was always part of the gang. We would hold full moon ceremonies at the beach, drum circles at night, and healing sessions by day. Once a week in the evenings, we would go to Panera to get some tea and enjoy each other's company. All in all, it was a very fun time in my life. As time went on, I would see Rodney often. We would meet at farmers markets. I volunteered to help him run a haunted house attraction he was managing, and attended his yoga classes while he was getting his instructor education completed. Rodney and I developed a very deep friendship, but it was nothing more than that. After all, I didn't have those feelings for him, and I never got the impression that he did either. I was close with his girlfriend, who he seemed to be very much in love with. If anything, I would say he was more of a fatherly figure to me. For all these reasons, I let my guard down. A year later, the lease on my apartment was ending, and I decided to move in with my boyfriend, who lived about 40 minutes away. The distance, combined with the busy new job, left me less and less time to visit the center. Eventually, I stopped going, other than the occasional trip to their little gift shop to buy sage and crystals. Rodney and I kept in touch a bit through Facebook, mostly him liking or commenting on my photos. Life happened, and it had been about 2 years since we had last seen each other in person. One day I was on my lunch break at work and went to a nearby grocery store to get some summer rolls. As I walked by the coffee bar, I saw Rodney, and his eyes lit up while he opened his arms wide. I was given one of his infamously long hugs while he slowly rocked back and forth. He told me I looked great, and we caught up on what we'd both been up to since we saw each other last. I explained how I had started another job not far from the center, so I'd be in the area again. He told me that he and his girlfriend, our mutual friend, had broken up. Apparently she was incredibly needy and insecure, which seemed untrue as I knew her pretty well. Then he started to tell me about his new business plans to teach rich older women yoga. After all, they're lonely and neglected by their husbands, so they want to be touched. Taken aback by his intentions, I continued to listen as he went on. I have a private studio space now. You should come by sometime. We can lay naked in the sun and do some stretches. It would be very healing. I was beginning to feel uncomfortable. Then again, I thought maybe perhaps I was overreacting. After all, this guy was a total hippie, so it probably didn't seem strange to him. Myself being flustered and unsure of what to say, I said, Cool. Hey, I'm running really late for work. I need to get going. It was nice seeing you." He leans in again to give an awkwardly long hug, and then kisses me on the lips, something he had never done before. A few weeks passed by, and Rodney had sent me some texts and Facebook messages about getting together. I lied and said I couldn't, because I was busy with my job. Although I felt creeped out by the whole situation, I tried to rationalize with myself that I was being overly dramatic. After all, I had known this guy and his son for years, and he had never done anything to betray my trust. Despite avoiding that grocery store since we last bumped into each other, I had to go back a couple of weeks later to get a specialty item. Since it was a different day of the week, I was certain I wouldn't see him there. But I was wrong. Avoiding the coffee bar area, I made my way through the back aisles. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder, followed by Rodney saying my name from behind me. Despite being unable to shake the anxiety I was feeling, I slowly turned around with a forced smile and said hello. Once again, there was another awkward, long-ass hug. He then told me he wanted to hire me for a project he was working on, knowing that I was having a bit of a tough time financially. I have a vision for the space I'm working on. I'll do yoga poses naked and have them shot in black and white. I'll hang the pictures in the studio, and I want you to be the photographer. He also knew fully well that I used to be a photographer. I paused for a moment and then told him I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. Most of my equipment is still up north, and I don't have the lenses I would need. Another lie, but I really thought we were friends, and didn't want to jeopardize that with some weird Leo Kate Titanic-ish photo shoot. Then he tells me that he's sure whatever lens I have will be just fine, and I should stop by the studio tomorrow after I'm off work. He gave me the address, and I tell him that I really wouldn't be able to stay long, as I need to get home and let my dogs out. I lived about 40 minutes away. Still, he insists that I should check the place out, that he wants to give me a tour, and he can't wait to show me. The next day I drove by the location on my way home, contemplating on whether or not I should go in. My brain kept trying to tell me it was fine. I knew him very well. I knew his son, and he was a pretty harmless hippie. But why couldn't I shake the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach? So I decided to turn around and went straight back to my house. Once I was home, he called me 9 times that same night, but I didn't answer. In the messages, it sounded like he was really angry, but was trying his hardest to come across as calm. The following day, he called me 14 times, mostly just calling and hanging up repeatedly. After about a week, the call stopped completely, and I put the whole situation in the back of my mind. Fast forward to a few months later. I'm at the center chatting with my friend Rebecca, who owns the place. We're catching up for a while, when I ask her if she's seen Rodney lately. Her eyes became stern yet panicked. "He's not welcome here anymore. You need to stay away from him," she warned. Curious to know more, I mentioned that the last time I had seen him, he was acting rather strange. I then told her about the photo shoot he wanted to do at his new spot downtown. Again, she looked deeply concerned and let out a long sigh. What she told me still shakes me to the core. Apparently right around the time when he wanted to do our photo shoot, he had gotten arrested for beating the shit out of his new girlfriend. So bad that Rebecca teared up as she described the injuries that had put her in the hospital. Not long after, he was arrested a second time for sexually assaulting another woman, as well as other drug-related charges. She continued on to tell me that he never had any intention of opening a studio. He was totally broke and couldn't afford the lease, but he did know the guy who owned the building. Rodney had a key to look after the place while the owner was out of town. Rebecca knew all of this because she was good friends with Rodney's ex-girlfriend, who told her everything while she was in the hospital. My mouth dropped, and my heart sank when I heard all of this. The person I had known for years had attacked women and purposely fabricated a story to get me alone with him. One of the scariest parts to me is that I'm usually such a good judge of character, and he had me completely fooled for the longest time. It made me question my instincts and gave me a lot of trust issues. At least in the end, I did listen to my gut feeling. Not to be dramatic about it, but it could have saved my life. It's terrifying to think about what his intentions were for me that night. In retrospect, I can see other situations that should have been red flags. I guess hindsight really is 20/20. Looking back, there were various things that I overlooked, which all make perfect sense now. Maybe for some, the outcome seems obvious, but at the time I really thought he was a great person. Perhaps my younger self was naive and too trusting. All things considered, I can certainly say that I'm much more cautious now. I'm sharing this story in the hopes that even just one person will learn something from this cautionary tale. My parents divorced when I was around 1 year old, and my mom decided to go to college shortly after we moved into our own tiny house. My mom didn't have those crazy party years, as she got pregnant with me relatively young, so she saw this as her opportunity to do so. Usually my grandparents or her best friend would watch me on the night she would go have fun, but sometimes there was no one available. My mom would throw small parties at our place instead on those nights. I don't remember most of these, just small flashes here and there of our crowded living room and kitchen, or salt and pepper songs blasting in the backyard. My mom had this guy friend, we'll call him Jeremy, and he came to every party. I loved Jeremy, and my mom did too. Partially because he was gay, and she never felt threatened by him, and partially because he also adored me. I was a 3-year-old girl obsessed with anything Disney princess, and every time I saw Jeremy, he would bring me anything cheap and Disney princess related. Anything from growing sponges to crayons. This, of course, meant I trusted and loved Jeremy. He would call me a chicken legs, which a 3-year-old thought was hilarious and insulting at the same time, since everyone had always said I was a really skinny kid. However, I was delighted in the little nickname when he used it, and would only answer to that when he came around. One day during the summer, my mom was hosting a small barbecue, and Jeremy had come over early to help prepare. It was just the 3 of us, and my mom told me she remembered Jeremy constantly checking his watch. She wrote it off as he was just making sure everything would be ready on time. But around 5 o'clock, Jeremy suddenly pulled me into his arms, saying I was being a bit fussy and wanted some juice. My mom hadn't noticed I was being fussy, and to this day swears I had been happily playing on my own. She says Jeremy took me inside, through the front door, and out into the front yard where another car was waiting without missing a beat. I trusted Jeremy. But to this day, I'm so thankful that I started screaming my head off as the passenger door opened. Jeremy proceeded to shove me inside, while my mother came rushing to the front door. My mother is not one to be fucked with. She's the toughest woman I know, and in every essence she's a mother bear. She came barreling out the front door and charged across the lawn. Jeremy saw this and froze, pulling me from the car just as it sped off. My mom proceeded to ask him what the fuck he was doing. She already knew, but Jeremy fed her some bullshit about taking me to the store real quick because we were out of juice. He said I had agreed to go, and thought it was fine since they were friends. My mom snatched me away, and told him to get the fuck out, and never come back. You don't just take someone's kid without telling them. She never wanted to see him near her or me ever again. I never saw Jeremy after that, but I didn't understand why. I asked him about it a few times, but eventually I forgot, as toddlers often do. I don't know what instinct told me to scream, as I thought of Jeremy as a family member, but I'm so glad I did. Wherever Jeremy was planning on taking me, there was no way it could have been good, and some sick part of me wonders if my pet name had anything to do with that destination. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave feedback in the comments below. as well as perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a personal story that you'd like to submit, or you'd like to just send me a message, links to all of my social media will be in the description for the video below. This includes my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the theme of the story is, if it has any, the name of the story, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious at all about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description below, in the order which it appears. I also have links to the artists and list the tracks by name, just in case you want to find more of their work. Last but not least, if you have any criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.